Our guest today is an actor and comedian who's probably best known as Duke Slater on TV's Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C., but he is, without a doubt, one of the most familiar faces and voices in television history, having appeared on, hold on to your hats, folks, The Andy Griffith Show, The Patty Duke Show, Phil of the Future, Yes Dear, The Wayans Brothers, Step by Step, Coach, The Golden Girls, 227, Saved by the Bell, Empty Nest, Mr. Belvedere, Santa Barbara, Trapper John M.D., Too Close for Comfort, The Brian Keith Show, The New Temperatures Rising Show, The Love Boat, Love American Style, Alice, Mork and Mindy, One Day at a Time, Charlie's Angels, The Dukes of Hazzard, Sanford and Son, Emergency, Happy Days, Adam 12, The New Dick Van Dyke Show, That Girl, Black Sheep Squadron, Jesse, and more. Ronnie Schell, welcome to the show. Boy, we have a lot to talk about here.
Whatever you want. Where are you from?
Well, I'm from New Jersey, but I lived for a while in Virginia, now back in New Jersey.
I love that whole area. I'm born and raised in California, but some of my favorite states are like North Carolina and parts of New Jersey along the shore.
Yeah.
And I used to have a joke in my act. I don't know if it still works.
Go ahead.
I used to say, well, you know, I'm doing so well in the business now. I'm very wealthy. I now have a home on both coasts. One in Tijuana, one in Newark. Then you just get a huge laugh. I don't know if it works anymore in Newark. Tijuana, of course, they're having terrible problems.
Right. You know, it's the darndest thing. I had a guest on this program about 3 weeks ago who also performed at the Purple Onion and who was also on You Bet Your Life. So it's a coincidence here. I had Ketty Lester, the singer Ketty Lester, on the program.
Oh, and you were well.
Yeah.
You were well. Is she stationed out in the West Coast?
Yes, she sure is.
Beautiful girl.
Yeah.
Good singer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I think she also played with Phyllis Diller, and so did you, right?
Yes. When I worked at the Purple Onion, I came back after work with Phyllis and worked with a lot of soon-to-be famous people or people that had a good reputation, and Ketty was one of them. If you run across her, please tell her I said hello.
I sure will. And it's the darndest thing because you also, I mean, I'm sure you've told this story a million times, but it was through your appearances at the Purple Onion that you were singled out for a guest shot on You Bet Your Life, correct?
Yes. Very briefly, the producer of You Bet Your Life was looking for a chance to get Phyllis Diller because she was just having her start. So he sent George Fenneman, who was also from San Francisco, and we graduated from college at different times, same college. And so he came up and he saw Phyllis, and he immediately signed her for You Bet Your Life. And then he said to me, you know, you're very funny. I'd like to get you on the show. And I said, really? I would love to do it. So 2 weeks after that, I was appearing on the You Bet Your Life.
What is a beatnik?
Well, my definition of a beatnik would be a fellow on the bottom looking down.
But they have their own vernacular, these beatniks, don't they? Their own language?
They do.
Well, I don't understand. How do they talk? I mean, do you know how to talk beatnik?
I know most of the words that they...
Well, could you tell us a joke using beatnik language, like you do in the Purple Onion?
Let's see. Well, now, these two cats were in this 12-story pad, you see, on the top of the 12-story pad, and one of them, makes the scene out the window, down 12 stories, see? So immediately the other cat calls the fuzz.
What's that?
Fuzz.
The other cat calls the fuzz?
Mr. Fenneman will explain it to you.
What is the fuzz, George?
The police.
Right.
Really?
Man, I know.
Well, I've seen that clip, and was the beatnik lingo, was that part of your stand-up act?
Well, not really, but beatniks were big in those days. Beatniks were probably ahead of hippies.
Yes.
But beatniks had a purpose. Some hippies didn't. So it was known as a beatnik-oriented club, the Purple Onion. And anyway, I got on the show, and Groucho was very happy with me, and that was my story with the You Bet Your Life.
I'm trying to think of the type of stand-up comedy at that time. I mean, there was sort of a Mort Saul type, sick humor of Lenny Bruce.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, where were you fitting into that scene?
I was a scaredy cat, so I didn't want to offend anybody, so I kept it fairly clean. I worked with Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce later owned a club in Hollywood called Cosmo Alley, and I got to know him in San Francisco, and he hired me to work his room. He would go on from 9 to 12, and then I would do 12 to 2:30 in the morning. But I got to know Lenny, and he was, very naughty at times,
Right.
but very incisive. Is that the right word? Very intellectual.
Right.
And he later, well, that's another story.
Yeah, he sort of went off the deep end there, yeah.
Yeah, I think he did himself in because he was under a lot of pressure from the police because he talked about everything. And he used terms that we would use today for minorities. But he didn't do them to put them down. He did
Right.
it for effect. And Mort was not a stand-up. He would go on the stage and with a newspaper and just go over the day's news.
So you were more in that Bob Newhart school.
Yeah. In fact, I was with Bob Newhart on his very first engagement out of Chicago at a place called the Tidelands. And I got a call from the owner, Bill Newkirk, and said, listen, we've got Bob Newhart up here in Dallas working at the Twin Tree Inn, and now he's going to work at my place, the Tidelands, and I'm not sure he's ever done a nightclub show in his life. Could you come in on your day off, which was Sunday? I said, yeah. So I flew in on the day off, and I met Bob, very friendly. I remember him saying, do you really enjoy doing stand-up? I said, yeah, you'll like it. He loved it. He was a hit from the beginning. I still see him every once in a while. He's a great guy.
Yeah, boy, he piled up Grammy after Grammy. Talk about a hit. He sure did. And to skip ahead a bit, I just wanted to get into the story of how you got the role of Duke Slater on Gomer Pyle. Was this the result of, again, someone seeing your stand-up act?
I hope so. What happened was, during that time, before I did Gomer Pyle, I was traveling. I was a traveling comedian with a very famous folk group at that time called the Kingston Trio.
Sure.
Oh, they were big. And we went all over the United States and parts of Canada and Europe, and I would do their stand-up. And one time I was working in San Diego, and Jim Neighbors' manager, Dick Link, who also managed Andy Griffith, he came and saw me, and he said, hey, I'd like to handle you. Well, I had nobody handling me except my wife. And so I said, sure. So I signed with Dick, and Dick immediately got me an audition to play the part of Duke on the Gomer Pyle show. And it's interesting that the producer of Gomer Pyle, a man named Aaron Rubin, a genius, just a genius, but he had the two characters, Frank Sutton, who played Sergeant Carter, and Jim. Now, they were bigger than life, right?
Yes.
They weren't like normal people. So he wanted the audience, the viewers, to have somebody who was normal on the show and would say, when they did outrageous things, he'd say, hey, what are they doing? They shouldn't do that. That's not normal. And that was my character.
What's going on? Who's this?
Hey, fellers. This is Rosemary, Joey's girl. She's his loved one. Say hey to the fellers, Miss Rosemary.
Hey.
Are you guys nuts standing around with the introductions? A civilian back here and a female civilian?
What are you worried about, Duke? It's my girl and my problem.
Oh, no, it isn't, Buster. It's everybody's problem. They find her back here and we all get the boom lord on us.
And so the first 6 episodes, I was just answering inquiries that a normal viewer would write. Well, this sergeant is over the top. And Jim is very funny, but it's crazy.
Right.
And so then after the 7th episode, they start letting me be funny. And then I stayed for 3 straight years. And then I left the 4th year to do another series on my own called Good Morning World. And then I came back the last year of Gomer Pyle, at which time Jim said, well, I've had it. I've done Gomer Pyle. I want to sing now. And so he went to CBS and said, can you give me a variety show? And they gave him a variety show called the Jim Neighbors Hour. And they brought Frank and me along as comedy foils. And so that's how that happen.
You know, I can't let this go by. You mentioned that TV series Good Morning World. That was set in a radio station. You're playing a DJ, and I just wondered if in real life you ever caught the radio bug and wanted to be a DJ?
No.
No, okay.
Well, I'll tell you, I always had this comment. Would you guys do radio? And I'd say, no, my voice is not down to it. My voice is not good for radio. But my best friend up in San Francisco was the number one radio personality at the time. And so I used to sit in and listen to him. But when we did Good Morning World, we were not technically doing everything right. We were putting our own fingers into the records and stuff like that. If you watch the show and you know your radio personalities and your disc jockey stuff, you'll know that we were wrong. But it was a semi-hit. The station manager was a very great veteran comedy actor named Billy DeWolf.
Yes.
Yeah, he was wonderful, and we became very close friends. So we stayed on for 2 years until Freddie Silverman, the new CBS vice president, said, too many hick shows on CBS. He meant our show. He meant Petticoat Junction. He meant the Andy Griffith Show. He meant any show that had what he would call a hick. And so we canceled all of us. And we were ahead of Carol Burnett. We were ahead of everybody in the variety. The only guy who came close to us the second year was Flip Wilson. Then we just got canceled, and I had to wonder when it was over, what would happen to poor Goldie Hawn?
Never heard from her again. Yeah, it was the show that discovered her.
Hey, Linda, I think Larry's in love with me. You really think so? I know so. I mean, a single fella just doesn't go around making a single lady his sole beneficiary on his flight insurance unless he's pretty serious about her. Does he?
No, he doesn't. Has Larry ever done this before?
No, all he ever sent me before was nothing.
That rural purge, as they called it, I think somebody said any show with a tree on it, they canceled.
Where'd you hear that? That's good.
Yeah, somewhere I read that.
That's good, yeah. That's what Freddie Silverman thought. You know, he passed away not long ago, but he ended up producing and directing Matlock.
Oh, okay.
Again. So I never forgave him, but I guess he was doing what he thought was right for CBS.
Well, you know, you appeared on just about every television show that I can think of. I mean,
I think you're right.
Yeah, your filmography's huge, but I'm going to tell you this as we start to wrap up here. Sure. I'm a voice actor, and I've worked on cartoons for years and years, and until very recently, I was very impressed with myself. And then I looked at your IMDb page, and I thought, my gosh, you've worked on so many cartoons. You've probably worked on more shows than you've ever even seen.
Yes, I was lucky. I never thought, like I said earlier, I never thought my voice was down to doing voices. But I ended up doing most of the shows, from Scooby-Doo to Smurfs. I was 3 Smurfs. Right. And it was a wonderful thing. I liked it because you didn't have to rehearse. Other than coming to the studios and reading the dialogue. But that was a whole another occupation which I surely enjoyed.
And they all live on. They
do. You're absolutely right. Someone will call me and say, "Yeah, I heard you on Wait Till Your Father Gets Home." I said, "Did I do that show?" He said, "You sure did." Okay.
You know, I had Margaret Karr on, who was the life model for Tinkerbell, and she went into voice acting for Disney and a host of other studios. And she said what first appealed to her about voice acting was she didn't have to get all dressed up, and go to the studio. She thought, boy, I can just stroll in however I'm dressed. This is for me.
I worked with Margaret in North Carolina. She did some Andy Griffith shows, and then each year in September we have a big Andy Griffith get-together called the Mayberry Days.
Yes.
And Margaret Karr attended most of those. Yeah, she did. She was a good voiceover lady.
Yeah.
She just got married. Did you know
that?
Yes,
she got married a couple. It was her high school sweetheart or something, and then they weren't in touch for 40 years, and then they got married.
Well, she's about 104, isn't she? I don't know. I'll see her in September. I'm doing the 7th year in a row at the Mayberry Days in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and I invite all your listeners to come and spend some time with us. You know, in Mount Airy, they have this thing that's been going on for 20-some years, and all dedicated to the Andy Griffith Show, and they get, in that small town, that's Andy Griffith's hometown,
Yes.
38,000 for the 4 days. And we have a parade, we have games, and it's wonderful. September 24th.
That's another show that is just going to be on forever, the Andy Griffith Show. People just, they
I watch
love
it every night. I watch it every night.
Yeah.
My favorite show, of course, I'm really going to date myself, is Gunsmoke. I watch it every afternoon. In fact, when I get out over this show, I'm going to go upstairs and watch it again.
Well, I don't blame you. I also love the radio version of Gunsmoke with William Conrad.
William Conrad, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. What a voice on him.
He didn't look anything like...
Yeah.
Did he?
No. It's like Sheriff Orson Welles. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Oh, can I tell an Orson Welles story?
Absolutely. Sure. Go right ahead.
Very short.
Okay.
And you'll get it. Orson Welles was known for, being a magician toward the end.
Yes.
And he made a lot of claims. Most of them were true. And so the story goes, this is a true story. It's not my story. It's a true story. A guy went out. He was a writer, and he went out and he tried to get an interview with Orson. And Orson used to go to this restaurant every day. I can't remember the name of it. But he would sit there and hold court, so to speak. So this guy went and he got a chance to be with Orson Welles. And they sat there and having lunch, and this young writer said, Mr. Welles, I'm a big fan of yours. And Orson said, well, thank you very much. He said, there's one thing that I never figured out. He said, what's that? In Citizen Kane, toward the last, there's a scene with the nurse and somebody else. And the funny thing is, she never actually heard Orson Welles say, Rosebud. How do you explain that, Mr. Welles? And Mr. Welles looked very surprised and touched the guy under the shoulder and said, you must tell no one of this discovery. That's a true story.
And I can hear it in his voice, too. You must tell no one. Yeah.
Anyway, I enjoyed being with you, and I hope we can do it again.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Schell. You have a great rest of your day.
You too, pal.